You know, I think what bothers me most about what happens in New York with this stop and frisk crap is that it is so identical to what they do in Israel. And it's just like their brand is CPS in Israel. Seems to be the same flavor as CPS we have here in this country. And you have to keep in mind why there would be a need to do this. And it has everything to do with racial profiling. Profiling, period. It's profiling, period. I too have been pulled over for DWB driving while there's a black man in the car. And it was a horrendous event. It was completely unnecessary. There was no crime that was committed. I had a headlight that the high beam didn't work, but the low beam worked, and it was daytime. So you pulled me over for what? Right? Ultimately, what happened was my husband and I wound up actually having to walk back to our hotel. Yeah. Um, Good gravy. They're doing this intentionally so that when they roll out their globalized ID and whatever it is they think they're going to be able to get away with. I mean, it'll just be that much easier. But the reason why I call it profiling is based on some material I was looking at yesterday. And we were talking about the NSA and security and stuff. And this lawyer made this, he was on The Lip, right? And we were talking, of course, about the Trayvon Martin thing. And he noted that what Israel does for profiling is racial. But the way they do it is the difference. See, America is using Israeli tactics, but they're using their race-baiting method, right, that they use, instead of doing it the way that Israel actually does do it. And they do racial profiling, and they will admit that. And I mean, it's like it was a really interesting conversation. You should hear this interview. And I was surprised. I posted it last night, primarily because the chica involved in the conversation, A, is not normally the one that's there, but B, she seemed to be the one in another interview on the same channel that seemed to be more for Zimmerman in the first place. And I found all of that describing him as a white Hispanic was being done intentionally. And then I looked into his father's background, and this is where you discover that he's like a huge manipulator. He's politically involved in all kinds of fun things, and he actually wrote a book before a Kindle called Florida versus Zimmerman. It's at Amazon.com for $3.99, and you can see the kind of attitude that was engendered. And this thing couldn't have made it around the planet, because I don't recall hearing anything about it until 2 days ago, after the trial. So this must have been something that was directly marketed, and that's what this guy does, is marketing, right? Directly marketed to the people in that community. Anyway, I'll go through my history and I'll find it and I'll post it for you, and you'll understand what I mean. But the whole profiling, all of this crap comes out of people's religions and stuff. The fear, the shame, the hate, the guilt, the bigotry, the idea that you own other people, that women and children are property. This is why these right-wing libertarian / Republican Tea Party wannabes are always talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of property rights. And I don't think you people are making that connection. I did. I was like, you're intentionally reciting that inappropriately. And then these Tea Party people are up here in my state because I decided to attach myself to the meetup groups, thinking that this was some kind of direct political action, right? That's when I still believed that there was some political fix to this. God, what was I thinking? But anyway, so we have a representative in Legislative District 39. Her name is Elizabeth Scott, and she decided for the rest of Washingtonians, and just so these folks know this up north of me here, she thinks the rest of us are pretty damn stupid. She, in fact, made a direct statement that claimed that Washingtonian voters didn't know the difference between an initiative and a referendum, and that's why we wound up with gay marriage. And so it's kind of hard to support people who are not only racially motivated, but homophobic too. Again, all of this coming back out of their Bible, man, or their interpretation of their Bible, without actually recognizing what the book is. And how many times has it been changed? How many times has it been edited? Don't tell me that it hasn't. Because a lot of what people argue about all the time is the actual translations of these words. And then not even recognizing what the book itself actually is, which is primarily myth and allegory. But it is holistically filled with race-baiting, bigotry, hate, fear, shame, guilt, death, mayhem. People I know get angry with me because they're like, why do you denigrate Christians? I denigrate anybody that is touting their dogma, because that's not who you are. In fact, I just got done asking a question. So we're having a conversation about perception versus reality. And then the next thing I know, this person is posting me an article by a third party. Well, I'm not talking to the third party. I'm talking to you. What is your concept, right? And that's the problem when people try to get into these discussions. They throw up somebody else's whatever, or this dogma, or that article, or this. I asked you. I want your words. I don't need a third party's words. I've heard all that before. I've been listening to that crud my whole life. There was a professor the other day, and she wrote an article that I actually did agree with. She said God is a white racist. And I would have to think in America that that would absolutely apply, because it's accurate. It's accurate. The God that is used, the God that gives people the right to pull a gun out and shoot one another in a situation that you created, is astoundingly arrogant and ignorant on the whole and on the sum total of it. And what I learned about the Zimmerman thing is that I don't care what you people think about racism not existing in America. That is a deluded thought pattern that you're existing in because you choose to. That is not the reality. This is your perception versus the reality of the situation. Again, I've said this the other day. I can't imagine as a parent having to instruct my children based on the color of their skin how they need to act or behave around a certain kind of person. Cops, clergy, school teachers, right? Even the gal in the video that I'll post for you, you know, I mean, she's adopted one of 7 kids, right? She even noticed as a kid that she was treated differently because of the color of her skin. She was followed around the stores, right? She was always looked at like this. We do this to one another. Why do you deny that it's happening? Why would anybody ever deny that that's happening? It's a lie. And some of this set upon you information, as far as I'm concerned, comes directly out of the churches and your Bibles, because in spite of the fact that people are supposed to love one another and take care of one another and uplift one another and protect one another, these are the last things that we talk about doing. The geopolitical attachment to this and what they actually do in Israel is vastly an interesting connection, and it lets you know just exactly who's in charge of what in this country. And that I find desperately devastating, because obviously it's not we the people. You know, I think what bothers me most about what happens in New York with this stop and frisk crap is that it is so identical to what they do in Israel. And it's just like their brand is CPS in Israel. Seems to be the same flavor as CPS we have WB driving while there's a black man in the car. And it was a horrendous event. It was completely unnecessary. There was no crime that was committed. I had a headlight that the high beam didn't work, but the low beam worked, and it was daytime. So you pulled me over for what? Right? Ultimately, what happened was my husband and I wound up actually having to walk back to our hotel. Yeah. They're doing this intentionally, so here in this country. And you have to keep in mind why there would be a need to do this. And it has everything to do with racial profiling. Profiling, period. It's profiling, period. I too have been pulled over for DDoS when they roll out their globalized ID and whatever it is they think they're going to be able to get away with. I mean, it'll just be that much easier. But the reason why I call it profiling is based on some material I was looking at yesterday. And we were talking about the NSA and security and stuff. And this lawyer made this, he was on the list.